Cicero, Epistulae Ad Atticum, Episode 31. Si lentuli navis non erit, quo tibi placebit imponito, Tulliola deliciolae nostrae tuum minusculum flagetat, et me ut sponsorem appellat, mihi autem aburare certius est quam dependere. This is the last portion of this letter, and Cicero now wraps up some final items. If Lentulus will not have a boat, if there will not be a boat of Lentulus, or if we want to say, if Lentulus's boat is not available, or will not be available, then imponito, place them. This is an imperative. This is a future imperative. Then place them, these objects of art, quo tibi placebit, where it will seem good to you, where it will please you, or we might say, to be idiomatic, wherever seems best to you. Then he says, Tulliola, my daughter Tullia, who is my favorite, deliciolae nostrae, demands, flagetat, your gift, tuum minusculum. That is, she demands a gift from you, and she calls upon me, appellat me, she calls upon me as her advocate. In other words, Tullia, that is Cicero's daughter, whom he gives here the diminutive Tulliola as a pet name, keeps begging for a gift from Atticus, and she has enlisted Cicero, me, as her advocate. So she says to her father, please remind Atticus that he owes me a present. And now the last portion of the letter, mihi autem certius est. It is more certain for me, however, taking this as the adversative use of autem, or I am more intending, right? It is more certain for me to aburare, to deny the obligation, that is, serving as the sponsorum, than dependere, than to make up the obligation in your stead. That's how we ought to take dependere. In other words, because Tulliola is begging for the gift from Atticus, and then trying to get Cicero himself to substitute ut sponsorem, he says, it's more likely, it's more sure, certius, for me, I am more likely to, or more intent upon, denying that obligation, that is, not paying the gift in your stead, than to pay up for you, dependere. So that's a pretty straightforward translation. Let's look at just a couple of grammatical items before we conclude. So the sentence begins with a conditional. We have si erit in the protasis, right? That is in the if clause, the protasis. And this, because it's a future indicative, looks like it's going to be a simple fact future, which you could also call a future most vivid. So that's the way it begins, but then notice it doesn't end with a future indicative. It ends with an imperative, imponito. So it's common to have a mixed conditional like that. Imponito, put them, quo tibi placebit, where it will seem good to you. Notice that the verb placere patterns with the dative case, to be pleasing to someone. So placere plus the dative, just put them wherever you please. The next sentence is very simple. Tulliola is the feminine singular nominative subject, but notice there is an appositive phrase, deliciolae nostrae. And this is a good example of how a noun and its appositive must agree in must agree in case, but they do not need to agree in gender or number. So this one is incidentally feminine, but it's plural, because the noun delicii is always plural. So Tulliola, my little daughter Tullia, who is my favorite, my pet, deliciolae nostrae. Then we have two verbs, flagetat et appellat. Very simple. Tuum minusculum flagetat, she demands your gift, and me appellat, and she calls upon me ut sponsorem, here as a kind of parenthetical. So notice the word order here is subject, Tulliola, object, tuum minusculum, verb, flagetat, object, me, verb, appellat. Very straightforward. And finally, the subject of est here is compound. It's aburare and dependere. So these infinitives are verbal nouns. These are the subjects. So to forswear or to deny the claim rather than to pay up for it, that is certius, more certain. So here's the predicate of the two infinitives, and it is a comparative adjective. It's a comparative adjective in the neuter, is more certain mihi, for me, and this with reference to Cicero is a masculine singular dative. If you enjoyed that little video lesson, please go ahead and subscribe for us, click the bell and so forth, check out the other videos on this page, leave a comment, and please be sure to check out our Patreon page as well.